Hello and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host, Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. India's toy industry shift from imports to eco-friendly exports. Gilgit-Baltistan mining sector faces crisis. Workers demand immediate reforms. And Hindu devotees in Nepal and India mark Janmashtami with fervour. Let's begin the show. India, once dominated by imported toys, is witnessing a transformative resurgence of traditional and made-in-India products. The import of toys in the country saw a sharp decline of 57% in the fiscal year 2022-23. The Indian toy market is now focusing on providing children with toys that aid in their overall physical and intellectual development. Let's delve into India's journey of being vocal for locals.
Building blocks, puzzles, dolls, stuffings, toys are child's best friend. They bring joy and laughter, can be educational and can play a fundamental role in child's development. In India, where over 158 million children are in the age group of 0 to 6, there's a huge market for the toy industry. India used to import a large percentage of toys until August 2020, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave a clarion call to rebrand the Indian toy story. He emphasized the need for the right kind of toys for children, using toys as a learning resource, designing toys based on the Indian value system, Indian history and culture, to strengthen domestic designing and positioning India as a global manufacturing hub for toys. The government devised a comprehensive action plan to boost local manufacturing and make India the global toy hub by incentivizing the manufacturers. The dividends soon emerged. As an outcome, the Indian toy industry witnessed remarkable growth in financial year 2022-23 in comparison to financial year 2014-15, with the exports of toys surging by an impressive 60% from $203.46 million in 2018-19 and $325.72 million in the fiscal year 2022-23. Today, the size of the country's domestic market stands at an estimated value of $1.5 billion and is projected to reach $3 billion by 2028. This sector is fragmented, however, with 90% of the market lacking organization and 4,000 toy industry units from micro, small and medium enterprises.
It's very true that India has really ramped up its production and stopped the imports from China. This is mainly because of the implementation of the BIS standards for toy safety, and those being put under the QCO. And now for shipping to India, any Chinese factory will first have to get themselves approved. This method applies to all the for if we want to sell to China also. So the Indian toy industry has managed to do this primarily on account of the QCO, and this is just the beginning. I think because of the QCO, the Indian industry has realized that they can do a lot more products than they thought that they were even capable of, and I think in the future they are going to have much more, they're going to grow much more than this.
From traditional handcrafted play items to the most advanced robotic gadgets, the Indian toy industry is booming today. In a time like today, when the world market is dominated by harmful plastic toys, the Indian toy industry is striving to offer the world a sustainable alternative to cater to their demands. Amongst the long-standing art of toy making, the Channapatna toy of Karnataka stands out as a gleaming glory of India's age-old traditions. Channapatna, often regarded as the toy town of India, is known for its vibrant and intricately handcrafted wooden toys. These toys are often coated with a non-toxic, natural lacquer and dyes extracted from vegetables and trees. In a step towards an eco-friendly environment for centuries, these artisans have meticulously crafted these wooden toys, carrying forward the legacy of their forefathers.
100 ईयर से है बिजनेस ये है हमारा फादर से चला का है अभी ये 4th जनरेशन का है बिजनेस ये अभी हम हैंड ओवर कर लेके जा रहे हैं अभी इधर ये है फेमस चनपटना टॉयस है ये पूरा लैकरिंग टॉयस आता है विथ नॉन लेड केमिकल विथ आता है आपको जो ये कलरिंग लगाते हैं लैकर वगैरह सभी ऐसा वगैरह सभी लैकर आता ना ये सभी आके नॉन टॉक्सिक रहता है कहीं भी वर्ल्ड में नहीं बनता ये इधर बर्निंग करके ये करके इसका लैक आता है नेचुरली वेजिटेबल डे डाल के बनवाते हैं इसीलिए ये फेमस है फर्स्ट पर्टिकुलर कुछ अलग अलग स्टेट में एग्जीबिशन अभी गवर्नमेंट एग्जीबिशन लगता है कर्नाटका डेवलपमेंट का एक एग्जीबिशन लगता है अभी आपके दिल्ली में बोले तो दिल्ली हाट में लगता है अभी गुजरात में बोले सूरजकंड बोल के उधर एक लगता है
The handcrafted wooden animals, friends, figures of Hindu gods and goddesses, traditional folks, and decorative items like beads and hangings are some of the most popular Channapatna art. The making of artifacts requires great artistic prowess in craftsmanship, following which the artisans go through an intensive process of cutting and shaping wooden pieces into artistic pieces, characterized by intricate carving and the coating of naturally extracted dyes onto them. Instances like these not only showcase the significance of Indian traditional crafts but also help in achieving sustainability goals, making it a win-win for both people and the planet.
Moving on. 3 years after the Taliban's return to power in Kabul, Afghanistan is mired in turmoil, with Afghan women suffering the most. And the regime has been imposing harsh restrictions on women and have barred them public spaces and education in the name of Sharia law. The Taliban's promises of economic recovery have faded into a reality marked by oppressive restrictions. The newly ratified law on the promotion of virtue and the prevention of vice, with its 35 articles, further tightens control over women's lives, enforcing full body coverings and silencing their voices in public. Afghanistan's future grows dimmer as these repressive measures deepen. It's been 3 years since the Taliban took control of Kabul, marking a dramatic shift in Afghanistan's socio-political landscape. Despite promises of economic recovery, the nation remains in turmoil, with Afghan women bearing the brunt of Taliban's oppressive regime. From the outset, the Taliban enforced a series of harsh restrictions on women, imposing strict dress codes, denying them access to education, and silencing their voices in public life. Recently, the Taliban solidified their control by ratifying a new morality law in Afghanistan that introduces strict regulations on behavior and lifestyle. This law, which codifies many existing restrictions, has sparked significant concern due to its impact on daily life, particularly for women. Afghan women are now required to cover their entire bodies, including their faces, rendering the previously common hijab inadequate. Additionally, women are now prohibited from singing, reciting, or reading aloud in public as their voices are deemed intimate and should not be heard. Ravina Shamdasani, the chief spokesperson for the United Nations Human Rights Office, has condemned the law, calling for its immediate repeal.
The newly adopted law on the promotion of virtue and the prevention of vice by the de facto authorities in Afghanistan cements policies that completely erase women's presence in public, silencing their voices and depriving them of their individual autonomy, effectively attempting to render them into faceless, voiceless shadows. This is utterly intolerable. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk calls for this egregious law to be immediately repealed. The long list of repressive provisions that this law imposes on women reinforces a number of existing restrictions that violate their fundamental human rights, including their freedom of movement, their freedom of expression, and their right to live free from discrimination. The law includes a requirement to wear clothes that completely cover their bodies from head to toe, including their faces. A ban for transport providers on transporting women unless they're accompanied by a male relative. And a prohibition on women's voices being heard in public. Disempowering and rendering invisible and voiceless half the population of Afghanistan will only worsen the human rights and humanitarian crisis in the country.
The situation for Afghan women continues to worsen. They are now prohibited from making eye contact with men who are not their relatives by blood or marriage. Violations of these laws carry severe penalties, including warnings, property confiscation, or detention for up to 3 days. The Taliban's crackdown extends beyond its borders. The regime recently barred Richard Bennett, the United Nations appointed special rapporteur, from entering Afghanistan. The Taliban administration accuses him of spreading propaganda about their human rights violations. Bennett, who has previously suggested that the Taliban's treatment of women and girls could amount to a crime against humanity, has been monitoring the situation from outside the country since 2022. Rights groups and international observers have condemned these laws as a further erosion of women's rights in Afghanistan. Heather Barr of Human Rights Watch has voiced deep concern over the formalization of these rules, noting the continued crackdown on personal freedoms since the Taliban returned to power.
It doesn't seem like a coincidence that this announcement by the Taliban has come so soon after the Doha 3 meeting. What the Taliban saw at the Doha 3 meeting is that the UN is going in several different directions at once. And while there's parts of the UN that are trying to uphold human rights and document Taliban abuses, there are other parts, as they saw at Doha 3, which are ready to make any compromise and to embolden and empower the Taliban, as the UN did by agreeing at Doha 3 in response to Taliban demands to exclude Afghan women from the meeting and exclude from the agenda any formal discussion of the human rights crisis. So this is a deepening crisis, and the international response is wildly unacceptable. And this moment right now, with Richard having been barred from entering the country, is a test of the international will to actually do something about the women's rights crisis in Afghanistan.
Since taking power, the Taliban have systematically dismantled the progress made over the past 2 decades in advancing women's rights. Today, Afghan women and girls face widespread human rights abuses enforced through over 100 decrees restricting their rights to work, attend school, access healthcare, and participate in public life. Even visiting parks, restaurants, or beauty salons is forbidden. Afghanistan remains the only country in the world to institutionalize such extreme policies. Women have effectively become prisoners in their own homes, with male relatives acting as their enforcers. This has led to severe mental health crisis and a humanitarian emergency. The Afghan economy is in free fall, with poverty and food insecurity on the rise, as half the population is barred from contributing to the country's recovery. Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
The death toll from devastating floods caused by relentless monsoon rain and overflowing rivers in Bangladesh has risen to 23, with around 1.24 million families stranded across 11 districts. As floodwaters recede slowly, many of the 5.7 million affected people remain isolated and in urgent need of food, clean water, medicine and dry clothes, above all in remote areas where blocked roads have hindered rescue and relief efforts. The Bangladesh Meteorological Department said that flood conditions could persist if the monsoon rains continued as water levels were receding very slowly. Around 4,70,000 people have taken refuge in 3,500 shelters in the flood-hit districts, where around 650 medical teams are on the ground to provide treatment, with the Army, Air Force, Navy and the South Asian countries' border guard assisting in rescue and relief operations. An analysis in 2015 by the World Bank Institute estimated that 3.5 million people in Bangladesh, one of the world's most climate vulnerable countries, were at a risk of annual river flooding. The record high temperatures and sweltering weather that suffocated Japan this summer did not stop father and son Yasuyuki and Yukihiro Kurosawa from tending their crops, not least because they feel they have no choice but to keep working. The family, who grow rice, cabbage, wheat and corn in Miwa, a town in the central Gunma prefecture, are some of Japan's increasingly elderly farmers who are at a greater risk than most people of falling ill or even dying from working in the heat. Agriculture accounts for about 1% of Japan's economy, and almost 70% of its 1.4 million farmers are aged 65 and above. This July, the number of people working in farming and fishing who were taken to hospital due to heat stroke was 877. Nearly 5 times the number in June, according to the Fire and Disaster Management Agency. In 2022, 29 farmers died from heat stroke. But other than some basic precautions like avoiding the hottest times of day and staying hydrated, the Kurosawas say they have to keep going despite the heat. Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira met his Indian counterpart Subramaniam Jaishankar in New Delhi and held bilateral discussions. Jaishankar appreciated Brazil's partnership with India on trade and biofuel energy cooperation, while Vieira mentioned how trade flows between the countries have substantially gone up despite the challenges posed by the current international scenario. Vieira, who was on a 4-day official visit to India, said there has been a significant expansion of bilateral agenda in key areas like defense, agriculture and energy cooperation between the two countries. Brazil is all set to host the G20 summit later this year after India officially handed over its presidency to the nation in the 2023 session. India and Brazil have built a strong relationship in recent years based on common positions on issues such as global trade talks and the expansion of the UN Security Council.
The Gemstone and Minerals Association in Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan is facing severe challenges due to strict regulations and difficulties in obtaining necessary permits. These obstacles are causing significant economic hardships, including rising unemployment and revenue losses for mine workers. At a recent press conference, stakeholders demanded a return to simpler permit processes and issued a 1-week ultimatum to authorities. If their demands are not met, the association has warned of mass protests by mine workers throughout the region. We have a report.
The Gemstone and Minerals Association in Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan is grappling with significant challenges, including stringent regulatory conditions and difficulties in obtaining no-objection certificates and explosive licenses. These administrative obstacles are having severe economic consequences, such as increased unemployment and revenue losses for the region's mine workers. A major convention of industry stakeholders held a press conference at the Gilgit Press Club in Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, highlighting the challenges faced by mine workers in the region.
सेक्टर में हमारे हजरात गुज़िश्ता 30 सालों से काम कर रहे हैं और तकरीबन कोई 30,000 से के करीब हमारे कारकुन काम कर रहे हैं जिनको रोज़ी मिलती है इन्हीं जेम सेक्टर से ही। और इसके अलावा एक मेटल्स और मिनरल सेक्टर है उसके ऊपर जिसका इनिशियल स्टेज है। इस वक्त मुख्तलिफ जगहों पे मुख्तलिफ फॉरेन कंपनियों के साथ हमारे मेंबरान ने जेवी करके मुख्तलिफ जगहों पे प्रोजेक्ट्स चल रहे हैं। और अब इन सब को देखते हुए कुछ हमारे जो है ना चैलेंजेस हमारे सामने पेश आ गए। हम बारहा हुकाम बाला के पास गए इन सब सेक्टर्स चैलेंजेस को लेके। बहरहाल हुकाम बाला ने से कोई हमारी कोई रिलीफ हमें नहीं मिला और कोई सुनवाई नहीं हुई।
The stakeholders in the mining industry emphasize the urgent need to streamline the process of acquiring mining permits. They argue that the procedures previously in place, which required less documentation, should be reinstated.
पास प्रैक्टिसेस हमारे पास ये थे कि पिछली दफ़ा हम इस तरह करते थे, इससे पहले हम इस तरह करते थे कि हमें परमिट दिया जाता था आसान एक साथ में और वो हमारा एक पावर ऑफ अटार्नी होती थी। हम अपने एक नुमाइंदे को भेजते थे, वो आता था हफ्ते का कोटा लेके जाता था पहाड़ों के ऊपर जाके अपना माइनिंग कर रहा था, जो कि अभी पावर ऑफ अटार्नी भी ख़त्म किया है गवर्नमेंट ने और बारूद देना भी बंद कर दिया है। ये बहुत बड़ा संगीन मसला है। इस वक्त तमाम मायने बंद हैं गिलगित बल्तिस्तान में और इतने सारे जो है ना हमारे कारकुन बेरोजगार हो रहे हैं।
Citing the looming threat of unemployment and growing frustration among mine workers, the Gemstone and Minerals Association in Gilgit-Baltistan has issued a one-week ultimatum to the authorities to meet their reasonable demands. In Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, various associations frequently protest due to ongoing issues related to governance, economic hardship, and regional autonomy. These protests often stem from a combination of economic, administrative, political, and social issues, reflecting the region's struggle for better governance, equitable treatment, and improved living conditions.
Being a highly spiritual country, festivals are at the heart of people in India. The country celebrates a number of festivals throughout the year that offer a unique way of seeing Indian culture at its best. So today, in our series of cultural stories, we take you to India and neighbouring Nepal, where Janmashtami festival was recently observed with great devotion. Have a look.
Tens of thousands of Hindu devotees in several parts of India flock to temples to offer prayers and celebrate the festival of Janmashtami, which marks the birth anniversary of Lord Krishna. Devotees danced and chanted religious hymns and slogans as they waited in long queues to catch a glimpse of Lord Krishna on his birthday. Devotees take turns to sway their beloved Lord Krishna sitting in the decorated palanquin and seek blessings for their well-being. However, Janmashtami is a Hindu festival. People from all religions take part in these grand celebrations.
बहुत हर्षित हो रहा हूँ कि ऐसा सौभाग्य मिला कि आज कृष्ण जन्माष्टमी के दिन पे जन्मस्थान मंदिर में यहाँ आऊँ। बहुत ही कृष्ण जी की कृपा है ये।
जन्माष्टमी के लिए भोग, भगवान को फूल सब कुछ और निर्जला व्रत रखा है भगवान जी के लिए और नाच रहे हैं, गा रहे हैं। नाचने में तो मैं बिल्कुल मग्न हो जाती हूँ।
The celebration of Krishna Janmashtami is marked by a variety of traditional practices. One of the highlights is the preparation and sharing of special sweets. Among the favorites are pedas, laddus and kheer, which are offered to Krishna's idol and then distributed among devotees. Temples were beautifully decorated with lights, flowers and rangoli designs. Special prayers and rituals are performed and the idol of Krishna is adorned with new clothes and jewelry. Moreover, Nepal too soaked in the festivities of Krishna Janmashtami with full of devotion and joy. Devotees, especially women, spend the night chanting prayers and devotional songs, dancing and lighting oil-fed lamps. The renowned and artistic Sri Krishna temple that stands tall on Patan Darbar Square is made of stones by the then king of Patan, Siddhi Narsingh Malla.
झुलाइरहेको छ गरिरहेको छ गर्छौं अब दिउँसभरि निलार व्रत बस्छौं अनि बेलुका फेरि भगवानको चाहिँ प्रसादी बनाएर मनभोगहरू बनाएर भगवानलाई टक्राएर आरती गरेर अनि हामी प्रसादी खान्छौं अब सके रातभरि जागराम बस्नु भन्छन् अलि सकिँदैन बाबु है परिवारहरू सके भने बस्छन् भजन कीर्तन गर्ने त्यही होला.
According to Hindu religious scriptures, Lord Krishna is worshipped as the 8th incarnation of Lord Vishnu, preserver Hindu god. Dramatic enactments of his antics as a mischievous child and his fun-loving, flirtatious relationships with the gopis of Vrindavan, where he spent his childhood and youth, draw huge crowds on the festival. The festivities conclude at midnight, and it is believed that Lord Krishna was born at that hour. The festival of Janmashtami is being observed from time immemorial and holds a great significance in the lives of people as it teaches us how to fight evil and falsehood and establish truth. The festival's essence lies in its ability to bring out the best in us: compassion, devotion, and a sense of joy. Through vibrant celebrations and heartfelt devotion, Krishna Janmashtami reminds us of the timeless teachings and the divine presence of Lord Krishna in our lives.
Now it's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.